Hi, I'm Cindy Abbott Letro for Behind the Camera, and today we are on location in Viddler's. I think we're in the nether regions of the store. It's one of those places you can get lost in. But Don Viddler is with us, whose name is emblazoned throughout, and is, I think, his grandfather and father all involved in it. And Gary Grote, who has been so important to East Aurora itself, and really taking that brand and many others and making it really part of a very viable film industry throughout Western New York. So I welcome both of you. Perfect time of year. We got lots of stuff all around us. Maybe I'll let you start, Don, because Viddler's itself, how old is this store?
The store first opened in 1930. My grandfather opened it then. It's been in continuous operation since then, and my dad and uncle were here for many years, and now the third generation, my sister, myself, and our cousin.
It's almost a maze. It's one of those places if you could lose your child as you enter in, and if you turn to your left for the popcorn, the kid could disappear because you have all of these, you have the wooden floors, you have lots of stuff everywhere. I don't know how you do inventory, but I mean, slowly. The concept of keeping it authentic, where did that come from?
I think really my dad and my uncle, I give them credit, because back in the early to mid 70s, a lot of stores were modernizing, and they said, let's stick to our roots and play up the old-fashioned 5 and 10 and the look and the atmosphere and the nostalgia. And that's where it really started.
And of course, I think that plays into Gary, with you being involved with the East Aurora Chamber. It's really a nostalgia, but yet things are very new and fresh. But there's that feeling of history when you come to this town.
Well, yes. And when you start out with Viddler's is really kind of the anchor of all this over the years. It has done so much, as they've grown. It's helped the community and everything. Through their efforts and what they've done, they've drawn a lot of people here that support a lot of other businesses, smaller businesses, bring buses in and things like that. And so it's a lot of those different kinds of things happen that contributes to the growth and to the feel here and the experience here in East Aurora.
Well, it's one thing to create a business community and to have a successful business here. It's another to become the mecca of movie locations. And really, I can remember sitting around on a Thanksgiving or a Christmas and watching one of the Hallmark movies, I think, and seeing all of these wonderful visions of East Aurora. How did that transform?
Well, I think all this happened over time. We were fortunate enough that I had invited Tim Clark from the Buffalo Film Office in to meet with our number of businesses. We had this was several years ago, maybe about 25 or 30 of our businesses at the Hampton Inn. I knew Tim and his group were familiar with East Aurora, but there are so many other things that they might be able to take advantage of that might be more of an attraction for film production companies wanting to come here. And I think Tim was impressed enough by what he saw. We brought they brought their pictures, their publications and everything else. And I think Tim had a number of things to sort through that he saw, hey, there's more potential here than what we currently know. And I'll say this too, I think that, and I think you know this, that there's no other community this size that has the variety and scope of history, culture, parks, all those kinds of things in a very small area. And I think that's something that a film crew, looks at. Oh, we don't have to go anyplace else. We can do it all right in East Aurora. We can just cross the street and we can go to another location. So I think that's what makes it special.
Well, and the other thing is, I mean, in some communities, they'll see filmmaking not as an asset, but maybe as a disruption of business. Because if somebody wants to come in and film in Viddler's, that means that maybe, somebody else can't come in and buy, their popcorn or whatever. So that there's sort of this symbiotic relationship you've got to foster.
Sure. And I think, the filmmakers that have been here, they've been very good about working with us and vice versa. I mean, they realize they don't want to make a major disruption, whether they film in the evening when we're closed or during the daylight hours. And also for us, it's still, people get a kick out of it, the local community. It's easy to get extras if you want them from the local community.
When do you think that here in East Aurora you knew that you had something, that you had really grasped onto something that was going to continue to be successful?
You mean in regard to the...
Well, as a source of business, really, because it is, the film tax credits that we're getting from this state encourage filmmakers to want to come here. Western New York, people are friendly, so that it's a nice atmosphere. I mean, but you know, sometimes you think, I don't want to get my heart set on this because it could fall through.
Right. Well, I think when we had this meeting several years ago, we realized, I mean, there were a number of different things that came together at the same time, and I think one of the ones that made a difference, you know, aesthetically, visually, was the reconstruction of Main Street.
Yes, yeah.
You know, I think that made a big difference in terms of how people looked at East Aurora, the way it actually looked, the attractiveness, bringing the brick back to the center of Main here. I think that's when you kind of realize, you know, this is a unique feature to it.
And for you, you know, there's the history of this building that
Right.
has all of this stuff that's in here that makes you laugh when you see it.
Right.
What would your grandfather think of what's going on now?
I think he'd be astonished. The store's about 20 times larger than when he first opened it. And my grandfather was, you know, in that era, they just didn't market or advertise much. So he'd get a kick out, I think, just seeing the name of the store and in production or in the background and scenes. But I think mainly the size of the store and the activity here. Yeah, when I was growing up, Viddler's was just kind of the local hometown 5 and 10. You came here for a pair of shoelaces or spatula. Now we get people from out of town. And as Gary said, a village the size of East Aurora, we have a tremendous amount of history. We have 2 national historic landmarks, the Roycroft Campus and Inn, the Millard Fillmore Presidential Home. There's Knox Park, which is a national state or New York State park.
Right.
So there's just a lot of contained in a very small area, and you get tree-lined streets and old stately homes, so there's a lot here you can easily choose from.
What's interesting too is it's a mix of what you see, which is old and historic, but then you've used the internet and
Sure.
YouTube
Yep.
to sort of really make this hip and funny. I mean, how did that happen?
Well, I think when you have new businesses come in too. I mean, I've been here a number of years, and you see businesses come and go, but you also see the business owners change, and as you start seeing younger people come in,
Yeah.
you know, and they're the ones that are geared to that kind of technology, that method of communication, and that's kind of helped in terms of changing the mindset of the way people market themselves and the presence and branding that they have because of the new people coming in.
And it is a brand. That's interesting what you did. Describe for me what you think is the East Aurora brand.
You know, maybe I'll refer to Don to this. There's just so much, you know.
It's Norman Rockwell meets Courier Knives, and they produce It's a Wonderful Life.
What could be wrong
it's
with
very,
that?
I know it's kind of a cliche, but yeah, it is very small town. We get a lot of actually foreign tourists, German and French tourists, especially in the summer, and they come here specifically, because, not just because of Viddler's, but the town. This is what they think of America. They don't want to go to big malls. They don't want to. They want to go to New York City and the major cities, but if they want to see small town USA, this is perfect, and they come in and they're amazed by it. And what you mentioned about online, and that's just a function of the evolution of social media and young people. But our store, we're fortunate because we have so much silly, wacky stuff. We have day-to-day practical things, but we also have just a lot of nutty stuff. So it's very easy to make videos, and people are constantly filming themselves and taking selfies with the merchandise. And some we get from our customers. They just send in things, so that helps out too.
Well, what's interesting, this is a community that is founded on tradition. I mean, you know, you've been around since the early 1800s and changed and changed and changed, and sometimes maybe it wasn't good change, but you continued on. But families are able to bring their kids here and share part of that history.
Well, it's kind of cool. I mean, veering off the topic a little bit, there are a couple of things I wanted to say. With the different things that make up the East Aurora community, you have an ice rink that's a couple blocks from here that's developed into a huge draw for this area. And you see kids walking up and down the street during the winter, hockey sticks, ice skates, going down. Where are you going to see that anyplace else, you know? And I think you were talking about the hometown traditions kinds of stuff. I mean, we have an example of that coming up in a few weeks with the Carol Cake. If there's anything that's made more of an impression on me over the years, it's a Carolcade. When you have so many.
Tell me just quickly about that, because I think that's cool.
Well, this will be the 46th year coming up, and I actually started here. My dad started, a small troop of Girl Scouts came to the store. They said, "Can we sing carols in front of the store?" He said, "Sure." Gave him a box of candy when they were done. The next year he put a little ad in the local paper, said anyone that sings carols will give a box of candy. And it really kind of morphed from that. And then it got together with some other business leaders and said maybe we should make it more of a community-wide sing. And as Gary said, now on a perfect night, and a perfect night for here in December is a little bit of snow and 20 degrees is great. We'll get literally 4,000 people out on the street singing Christmas carols, and you have to sing every carol, every line. We don't skip any lines, and it's a real community event. It's not Viddler's. It's not a commercial thing. The local supermarket Tops gives out. They supply the hot chocolate. There's donuts. There's candy canes. The Rotary's involved. A couple of church groups help hand out. The local paper distributes the song sheets, and it's really it's a very much that truly is like a Norman Rockwell night when everyone and people come in lanterns. Someone, if the snow is on the ground, they might have a horse-drawn sleigh. So it's really just a really genuine, nice moment, and that's a real East Aurora tradition now.
Well, if there's one thing that has been left undone that we haven't talked about that you think is one of the coolest things that's taking place here, what would that be?
Oh, geez.
You mentioned the hockey rink, Carol Kane, but
There's just so many things, and again, I have a perspective over 25 years of seeing the different components kind of come together, and at each point, the different turn that the community has made to get to where it is right now, and you go from the Roycroft Inn and campus, from that being restored. Knox Farm State Park, Main Street reconstruction, all those kinds of things. The ice rink, the community involvement here is just so great. And one thing I have to mention, because so I don't forget this, that I think, and I know Tim Clark has mentioned this before too, that I think a lot of these film companies like to come here is because they found out that this community is so open, and the municipalities, the village of East Aurora and the town of Aurora are open and more than helpful in helping to make things happen and make it easier for these crews. Putting up the Christmas lights again after they've already been taken down, those kinds of things, So, so I wanted to make sure that the mayor and mayors in the past and the village and town boards have been very supportive of this kind of activity too.
well, it's amazing what can be done when everybody gets on moving in the same direction, celebrating what they have, which is an incredible history and a beautiful, beautiful town, and looking to the future for what could make them better. So thank you for all that you've done. It's wonderful. It makes us a richer location for filmmakers, and we hope that you'll join us next on our next edition of Behind the Camera.